Good afternoon, LinkedIn. My name is Joel Bennett, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode of Practical Leadership, an opportunity for you to learn how to be a more effective leader and build leadership habits into your daily work. If you are tuning in live or watching the recording, please say hello in the comments and tell us where you're from. I have a feeling we're going to have a much more international audience today. And if you joined us for our last session on Asking Real Questions with Evan Smith, I'd love it if you could share a little bit about how you've been asking better questions this week. So don't be shy. Go ahead and light up that comment section so we can see who's here. And while you're doing that, we have a lot of new folks each week, some of which have just stumbling upon this or maybe have been referred to by others to join us. Maybe you know our guests or have participated in the past. But in these sessions, what we're really trying to do is to tackle real leadership topics and challenges and encourage you to apply what you're learning from the sessions and provide just real clear, actionable steps, practical steps for you to build into your own leadership practices. So I've asked leadership experts from around the world to join me to provide their own perspectives and experiences. And today I've been joined by Matt Harris, Principal Consultant at CTY Group in Queensland, Australia. And so this is his morning. This is my afternoon. But Matt, it's great to see you and to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
No, great to be here, Joel. Thanks for the intro, and I'm absolutely excited to be part of the greater practical leadership program that you set up. Absolutely great initiative, and great. Absolutely honored to be part of it, mate.
Excellent. Well, Matt and I actually met for the first time last year on the encouragement of kind of a friend of a friend. And I just have appreciated his passion for blue collar leaders and really just working on, the challenges that leaders are up against each day in the work that they do. So excited to start our conversation here around this, because our topic today is really around connecting people, process, and purpose. And I do feel like that has an application for really anybody listening today, whether you're a team leader, a team member, but especially if you work in a process-heavy work environment. And that could be in an office setting, that could be in an industrial setting. But I think there's going to be a lot here that we can kind of connect the dots on around people, process, and purpose. So I'm excited to get Matt's thoughts on this. But before we get started, I do want to reinforce for those viewing that we'd love for you to be active in the comments, share your perspectives or questions along the way. And if you're watching this as a recording and you have questions or comments or perspectives you would like to share, please do so. We will touch base with you after this session and answer any questions that you may have, because we want to make sure that you get taken care of. So let's see who's wandered in since we've started here. I have to update a browser piece here. But it looks like we've got Aaron from Victoria. Thanks for joining us. Richard from Perth. Errol from St. Louis, Missouri. Matthew from, is that?
Yeah, it's Mackay, mate.
Mackay, Queensland. There we go. Sunshine Coast and Lauren. Mark Bloodsworth, great to see you in Victoria. Man, we've got a very Aussie audience today. Emily from Pella, right down the street from me. So it's a great group of people. And I'm glad we've got a pretty good group here. And again, just stay active in those comments. We'll take your questions, your comments as we go. And looking forward to see what kind of perspectives you have as well. So let's go ahead and get started, Matt. I think if you talk to most leaders, regardless of the type of industry they work in, they would already say they've got to have a strong focus on both people and process. And it's just a part of their daily work. So why should they also be focused on purpose as they work with their teams?
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Look, what we find is that you get really heavy on either or. And what we kind of advocate for is that you can actually move people and process forward together. And one of those joining or connecting parts of it is providing purpose. And that might be from a business purpose, and it might also be making sure that individuals in your team actually have purpose as well. And so what we find is that when individuals have have purpose, they're more likely to be safer, productive, and actually invested in the work that they do. And so being able to provide that direction, and it's not necessarily another focus, it's something that will happen innately when you have the right behaviors and you have the right drive and direction. You work in a business, and the business is there for a reason. What is that reason? I suppose we really try to make sure that the teams that we work with and the teams that we get to interact with and the teams that we get to support are really understanding why they do what they do. I guess one of the really simple examples of purpose for me is something that happened completely by chance not long after CTY started, and it was a delivery guy that was made that really made my day. So we'd ordered a parcel for the kid's birthday. It was absolutely bucketing down with rain this afternoon, and I come home and I've pulled up in the driveway and I've seen the message say the parcel's been delivered. Can't see it out the front. I'm bucketing down rain, thinking, oh, where is this thing? And what the guy had actually done is he'd actually put it in another bag, laid our wheelie bin over, and actually pushed it inside the wheelie bin to protect it from the rain because he couldn't actually get into the house. And you just go, wow, that's absolutely incredible. And we live in an area where you get to see that guy, every time you get a delivery. And I caught up with him the next week. We had another delivery. He just said, wow, man, that was just amazing that you were able to actually just able to hide that away for me and keep it dry. Like that, it would have been stuffed without it. And he said, oh, that's what I do. Like if you guys buy stuff that means something to you, you saved up, you've got it. If I deliver it and it's stuffed, like I've not only ruined the reputation of the provider, but you guys don't get what you need either. And he goes, that's why I'm here. That's why I do this, right? So, and this guy had a really clear understanding and a purpose for what he did, and it was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, I think finding that connection there between, in his case, the people and the process of delivering parcels was, and actually knowing what value he was delivering by doing that work was great. And that's why I think purpose is a big part of connecting people and process.
No, and that's fantastic. And like you said, it's a simple example, but the flip side, if he hadn't done that, and things had gotten ruined, we look at people and the way they do their jobs. I guess for me, sometimes the connection point, not only on purpose with process and people, is this whole topic of engagement, right? We always talk about wanting engaged teams, engaged employees, people that take ownership.
Yeah.
I think when people know their purpose or have a clear vision of what their purpose is, they are more engaged. They do take more ownership. They would think about their customer in a different way than just, I got to drop the package off and move on to, my job isn't done here until they actually have a package that's going to reach them in the condition and in the timing that they would expect, right? And so seeing that as more of a customer focused piece than just a project or a process focused piece, I think is huge.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I couldn't have put it better myself. There's a real opportunity, I suppose, to build that engagement through and understanding your team that you work with and the connection that you can have with them. So yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So let's imagine that I'm a new supervisor of a team, and that could be, in a factory, in a mine, in a hospital, an office, workplace. What are some of the first things you think I should do to develop purpose within my team?
So the two high level steps to really get it nutted down early on. And you might do this if you take on a new team. You might do this if it's first day on the job. But it's understanding, and I suppose I'll just caveat with, you can't do this on day
Uh-oh. So Matt's frozen for a second here. Matt did tell me there are storms that were going to be coming through, so we'll see if we get him back here.
Sorry, did
You're back, Matt. Perfect. I was just doing a little bit of a soft shoe.
I was just hoping that the Wi-Fi just hadn't just died then. But sorry. So trying to get the two big things that I suppose a new supervisor should be focusing on from a people perspective to help build purpose. The first one is about building trust and connection with your team, and the second one is understanding and knowing the impact that your team is going to deliver. So from a building trust and connection point of view, we want to be understanding and listening to the members of your team. If you don't know who your team is, you can't provide that linkage and that purpose for them. If you have a set of really clear expectations so that you're able to develop and build a plan for everyone in your team over in that first kind of month or so period that you have your team, so that you know how they're going to fit into delivering the goal longer term. The big one is just be visible in your workplace. Being able to make sure that that people have access to you. And when you work in, people might work in equipment, they might work in different areas of an office, and they might know where you are, but it's that one thing. I've heard a guy say before that you might have an open door policy, but nobody wants to walk through it. And so how do you go to the space where your team is, and how do you make yourself available from that point of view? So that really helps. They're really some of those really early key things to help you deliver that connection and start to build a connection with your team. Then it's about, well, what's the impact? How do you understand what it is that your team needs to deliver, and how do you measure that and communicate that? So, being able to provide a really clear understanding on what it is your team delivers and how they're actually going delivering that as well. If you can do those two things, they can kind of start to come together really well and start to help deliver the team's purpose and build the business's purpose as well.
Yeah. And there are two things there. I really liked what you said. One is about the open door policy. In a lot of companies, we talk about an open door policy and just being transparent and authentic, and all those things are good. I'm not going to beat that up at all. But quite often, especially in production environments, people will say, well, you have an open door policy, but you're actually never around. So whether the door's open or not, I can't find you. Yep. And so just that availability piece can be huge if you're making intentional effort to be around your people, kind of whether it's walking the line or working your way through the office to make sure not only that people see you, but that they're being seen and that they have an opportunity to ask questions or for you just to check on how they're doing. That's huge. I think the other part of that, as we were talking about, this connection point is, knowing my team well. Obviously, I have to spend time with them, but for them to understand our purpose as a team, it's that clarity of vision, right? And so it's not just about what do we do, but it's also what are we trying to accomplish, and on top of that, kind of what's our big why. And so going back to your example of the postman, the delivery guy, if he thought that the reason that he exists, his purpose in his position was just to deliver packages and get them to addresses, he does his job very differently than somebody who believes that their job is to connect people with, gifts or to improve their quality of life and those types of things. Having a better understanding, a broader understanding of the why for the team helps people get a broader understanding, or maybe a deeper understanding of their own purpose and how they interact with that.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably the key here. And I suppose I flagged at the start that there's a number of levels that we need to work through. And if you some people in your team are going to already be the people that are that understand what their purpose is. And what we find is that you might, if you go and ask someone straight up, like, why do you come to work? And you ask that question, and they go, so I get paid. Is going to be a pretty common answer, right? And there's just like what we know and what the research tells us, and is that there's so much more to it than that. Underlying, people might want to come to work to get paid, and some people do that. But then there's some more to that story. Some people come to work to get paid to go and support a particular charity, or to go and do a hobby, or to go and be the the state champion eventing rider, or might have car projects that they're really proud of. And there's always something extra. Is a really deep understanding that you can only get through connection and really spending the time with those individuals as individuals.
Oh. We've got a couple of comments and questions that have come in since we started. I want to start with Errol. The question is, can you provide basic insight on purpose/ownership tools we can utilize to engage the new generation of workforce that perhaps puts less emphasis on purpose and sense of ownership? I'm going to take a shot at this first, and then Matt, I'd like to get your thoughts or opinion on it. But as I've actually looked at some of the research and studies about the youngest generations in the workplace, whether it's Gen Z, Gen Y, because I've heard this before, right? That they're only there to make money, or they're not as engaged in the workplace. If you actually look at the top 3 drivers for why people choose either a specific job or a company, quite often the reason they say they either appreciate their job, love their job, or don't love their job, or don't appreciate the job, is that they can actually have an impact, right? That there's a reason for being in that job. And so I think there are companies who maybe have a great purpose or a great product or service they provide, but the employee themselves feels very disconnected from that purpose, or doesn't understand their role in the purpose. And so if they don't feel like they can have an impact, I do feel like that's going to drive down their level of ownership. So I'm not so sure it's a generational piece, because the research would also show the same things, in Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, even the baby boomers. If you want to look at those generations, all of them will say in their top 3, they want to do something important. They want to have an impact in their work. And so I don't want to push back too hard on you, Errol, on that, but and maybe that's what you're seeing in your workplace. But I would probably start with, do they understand what their purpose is, and have we been clear enough in that? Matt, what kind of thoughts do you have?
Yeah, I find sometimes we need to actually spend that one-on-one, and it really depends on the culture that you've got at the workplace as well. So, what we can find is that you may not have the engagement with that particular purpose statement, the vision statement, the mission. To actually get that buy-in, and if they don't believe it, or they're not seeing it in the actions, then they're probably not going to buy into it. So, I suppose that, I agree. I've read the same types of research that suggests that they really do want to be part of something bigger. And I certainly have had that experience with just yesterday, sitting down with a vacation student engineer who's only second year into their degree, really going, I just love working here. I loved getting this time out of here. I know that this is what I want to do. And you kind of just, knowing that, doing this because this is what I do, but just dig a bit deeper, what it is, why is it that you want to do this? Why do you want to work in coal mining? Such a, it gets such a bad rap these days, but there's so much opportunity in it as well. And it still provides for, well and truly over half the world's power, plus all the met coal as well. And you kind of go, and his answer to why do you want to continue to work in coal mining, he goes, because I still believe it has a place to change society, and I want to be part of that. So something very big, very well thought out. And, I think that that's probably the key, is that if you can see that people are, or teams that, that you're working with are not necessarily engaged, there's a couple of things to check would be, are we actually living what we're saying we're going to do? And do the behaviours and the culture support that? And if the gut feel is yes, and you've asked a few people around and they say yes, then I suppose it's about, well, what are the next steps after that? And happy to take some questions in detail, Errol, afterwards. If you send us a message, we might be able to help you out with a bit further context as well.
Oh, that'd be great. And then Simon Coventry just made a statement, make people feel that they're important in the process. And I truly believe that that's a big part of it. I would maybe change the verbiage just a little bit. It's not just about making them feel that way, but making sure that they're clear on why they're important in the process, right? And so it's less about selling them on it. And I'm sure that's not what you meant, but more about just kind of revealing to them, like, here is what you bring to the table, or here's what your role, how it actually ultimately gets us to, whether it's the perfect process or the way that we actually drive the services that we provide. But you do matter because of what you do, and being really clear on that.
Absolutely. And I think the key there is, don't give instructions, give the why. Like that's probably the underlying tone there. And I think there's plenty of paper floating around for the process, and we can lock down, this is how we work, and we've got different ways of training that. But delivering the context to be able to get a job done, to someone that's been doing a role for whether it's 5 minutes or 50 years, context is going to win every day over instruction.
Yeah. So look, talk to me a little bit. I said if I was a new supervisor, kind of stepping into this, where to start. But regardless of how long I've been in a leadership role, what are some ways I can start building this into my daily leadership, the way I lead my team or work with my coworkers?
Yeah, look, I think probably just to really get down into the impact, I think it's probably the way that it's the best way to try and take purpose forward, is understanding what your team what your team's impact is in the bigger business. And so if you can, as a new supervisor, if you can actually articulate yourself and describe what that impact is, would be step number one. What is it that your impact is going to be with your team? And if you can describe it and write it down, talk to your team about it, that's definitely step number one. This is what we do. This is what our part of the bigger machine is. This is the value that we create for the business. The second one is really around, how do you work out how to measure that impact? And if you can measure it, then you can give progress updates on it. You can actively talk to it. You can make decisions based on where you're at with it and how you interact with other teams. So, you can ask for help more oftenly. You can continuously improve that cycle. So there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value there in making sure that you can measure it. And it might be qualitatively, might be quantitatively. It really will depend on your situation. And if you've then got a measure, you can then report on it, and you can recognize people for it, and you can show that their contributions matter, and you can show that you've had a great day, and we can look for opportunities to improve, and you can ask people for feedback. That then rolls into just making sure that you have a space that your team can contribute to, and make sure that you can actually always looking for that opportunity to do things better. And it really changes the dynamic from being, the supervisor at the front of the room telling the team what they need to do and telling them what they've done wrong yesterday, or what they could be doing better, to going, having the team almost lead that discussion and say, hey, we saw this yesterday. What can we go and do here? We just need a bit of help to get this done. Can you help free this up so we can make that happen? There's a change in dialogue that needs to be led, I suppose, from this point. And I think that's probably finding a way to they're probably the 4 steps that we need to do. First one, by describing it. Once you've described it, you can just use that on a daily basis with your team to then measure it, recognized against it, and then get your team involved in improving. And that really helps unpack, that direction and the purpose that you're actually there to deliver.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that having a team that understands not just their purpose and their work, but the shared purpose that we have together, it does accelerate action. It gets people problem solving when issues come up, when typically they may have turned to the manager or leader or somebody else to try to fix it, to be able to say, no, this matters. It matters to my work. It matters to our customer. How do we do this together and make sure that we take care of it? So I love that. Yeah. So Matt, as I'm looking, we're winding up on time, and that we like to keep things practical here and really just start to take some small steps in the right direction around this topic of building connections through purpose. What's maybe one simple step if somebody wanted to start putting this into practice over the next week? What's a simple step that you would suggest that they start with?
Joel, I've got to start, absolutely back at the beginning. And I suppose the 2 things we talked about was, building that trust, and then delivering and determining what the impact's going to be. So winding all the way back, like the number one thing I would say is, find someone in your team that you don't have that connection with, and start a conversation that helps build it. And that, I think, is that single biggest step. And like I said, this isn't something that you'll solve overnight. You're not going to do something today, silver bullet, and tomorrow it's there. But you need to start that process to build. So if there's someone in your team you don't have a connection with, you haven't had a chance to catch up, and it might be because you've got a massive team. You might have 80 or 100 people, and there's a few people you haven't caught up with, or it might be because you've got a team and you're quite spread out geographically. Reach out and have a conversation that's not necessarily focused on feedback on related to a work outcome. Maybe have that conversation with them that's a little bit more personal, and start to build a bit of credibility in your own, and build some trust between you and that team member, that you can actually just pick up the phone and have a chat and just check in and see how they are. And that's probably that first part of building connections. So number one step off the cab off the rank, step in the big journey, and I think that's where it should all start. Perfect.
So for those tuning in, and again, many of you have tuned in for other episodes. Some are brand new. One of the things that LinkedIn can be used for is to learn. And I'm going to encourage you, as you go through this process, to be thinking about how can you put this into practice and utilize this session as not just a learning opportunity, but really a catalyst for action for yourself. And for some of you, it's I've heard this before, but I haven't done it. Just having a little bit of an accountability. So you've invested the time today to learn more about effective leadership, and specifically more about this idea of, creating team purpose or individual purpose, and how do we connect that. But that investment is going to be completely wasted if you don't actually do something with it. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to just identify what's one thing that you, the viewer, can commit to doing over the next 7 days to take your leadership to the next level. Specific around this thought process of purpose. And so once you have that, I would love it if you drop it in the comments for 2 reasons. One, so that you actually can crystallize it for you and understand what you're going to be doing over the next 7 days. But 2, also to provide some opportunities or some examples for others who may be struggling with this topic and aren't really sure where to start. And so again, kind of the encouragement, the catalyst for action, the second being the accountability for yourself. So that way, if you drop it in the comments and you join us again next week for our session, you can actually share how things went and what kind of successes you've had on that journey. So if you can, take 15 seconds now, drop your commitment for the next 7 days into the comments. Both Matt and I would love to see what you're taking away from this. And while you're doing that, I just want to thank you, Matt, for joining me today. I know we're tuning in from 2 different sides of the globe. We've kind of sidestepped the storms that are blowing through your area right now, and the Wi-Fi is for the most part, stuck with us. So it's been a ton of fun speaking with you on such an important topic. And I just want to thank you again for being here.
Oh, Joel, like I said, thanks. It's been great to get to know you, and it's great to know that we're working on the same things all over the world. And yeah, thank goodness for the apologies for all that orange glare in the camera today, but we've certainly glad that storm's held off. So it would have been loud.
No worries. So if you want to get a hold of Matt and hear more about the work that he does, I'd encourage you to reach out to him on LinkedIn, follow his posts. He's got some great content. And so, yeah, please reach out to Matt and let him know how he can help you out. So that brings us to next week. I'm excited to announce that Catherine Harrison, president of Purple Voodoo and an accomplished change agent and author, will be joining me to explore human-centered leadership and what that really means to her and what that should mean to you in the workplace. So keep your eyes out on LinkedIn for that event posting. Or if you'd like, just drop a note in the comments asking me to personally invite you, and I'll make sure that you see a link to that event in your messages. If you stumbled upon this video and we're not connected on LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn request, mention that you saw the show, and we'll take care of that. And, again, I just want to encourage you to take something you heard from today's session and put it into practice as soon as today so that your team can be supported by the leader they need right now. And so with that in mind, hopefully you'll be back again next week. But regardless, thanks for joining us and have a great rest of your week. Blessings.
See you later, guys. Thanks, Joel.